This is a story for Christmas called No Word of a Lie. There was once a man who farmed the steep slopes of the hillsides near the town of Bethlehem, growing wheat to make its people's bread. His name was Samuel, but the local people had long ago given him a nickname. They called him No Word of a Lie Samuel, because Samuel always told the truth, even when a small fib might have been kinder or wiser. If his wife Hannah had spent ages making a new dress and asked him, "Does this make me look fat, Samuel?" he'd put his head on one side and look carefully and then say, "Well, no word of a lie, yes it does, just a bit." Oh dear, bad decision, Samuel. Or if a new parent showed him their beloved baby and asked him, "Have you ever seen a more beautiful child?" he'd say, "Well, quite a few, actually. In fact, no word of a lie, I think he looks plug ugly at the moment." The parents would be up in arms, but others would say to them, "Well, what did you expect from No Word of a Lie Samuel? If you don't want to know what he thinks, don't ask him." One day it happened that Samuel was out sowing wheat seeds in his field. Up and down the fields he went, scattering the seed around him, until by the end of the day every seed had been sown, and Samuel looked at his work. A little rain, a little sun, and in 3 or 4 months' time, he thought, this field will be full of wheat, ready to harvest. He thought about the little seeds tucked up in the good earth. He thought about the tiny roots that would grow down into the soil, slowly, slowly, and the green shoots that would grow up towards the sun. He thought about the ears of wheat swelling up and the green gradually turning to gold as the wheat ripened. Samuel gathered up his tools and sighed with pleasure at a job well done as he turned to walk home. But as he did so, he noticed something. 2 weary-looking travellers walking along the road, a man and a woman, and what was that the woman was holding? It was a tiny baby, surely, wrapped in rough cloth. They looked worried. They were going as fast as they could, but with a child and a mother who'd recently given birth, they were struggling, and they looked so tired. Samuel thought of his own children, grown up now, and his little grandchildren. He wouldn't like to imagine them feeling like the bedraggled family he saw before him. So Samuel hailed them. "Where are you going so late in the day, and why the rush?" he said. "We're heading for Egypt with our child," said the man. "He's in danger and we must hurry." "Well, you won't get to Egypt tonight," said Samuel. "No word of a lie, it's hundreds of miles away, and you look so tired. Why don't you stop the night with me and my wife? We'd be happy to feed you and give you a bed, and you'll go along much faster tomorrow with a good night's sleep and some food inside you." The man and the woman looked at each other and whispered together something that Samuel couldn't quite hear. "It's very kind of you," they said, "but we're afraid we'd put you in danger. King Herod is after us. He wants to kill our child, and anyone sheltering us might be at risk if he found them." "Well, that settles it," said Samuel. "You must definitely come back with me. I've no time for Herod. He is a cruel man, no word of a lie. I'm happy to take the risk to help someone who's on the wrong side of him, and so will my wife be. There's no need to go a step further. You're coming home with me, and you can get on your way in the morning, bright and early. It can't make much difference if we're careful, and our little house is out in the middle of nowhere, so no one will know you're here." So the man and the woman, whose names they said were Mary and Joseph, came home with Samuel. And when they got there, Samuel took Hannah aside and told her what Joseph and Mary had said. "Are we putting ourselves in danger by sheltering them?" asked Hannah. "Yes, we are," said Samuel. "No word of a lie, we certainly are. But we can't let them go on. They need us." And Hannah agreed, as he knew she would. and she welcomed them with open arms and made them sit down and made a fuss of the baby, Jesus he was called, and bustled about sorting out some good food for them all to share together. Darkness fell as they sat and ate and talked in the one-roomed house, and Mary and Joseph told them a strange story about how they'd come from Nazareth, about angels and shepherds and travellers from distant lands and a star in the sky, and the news they'd been given that their child was sent from God to show the love of God. And Samuel and Hannah thought it could just possibly be true, because in the darkness of the room they could swear that there was a light coming from the cradle they'd found for the child, a light that shone in the darkness and chased it away. In the morning, Hannah and Samuel got up early, but they found that Mary and Joseph were already packing their bags, ready to go. "Must you go so soon?" said Samuel. "Yes," said Joseph, "I keep having awful dreams about Herod, and the danger our child is in." "Well, at least take some food for the journey," said Hannah. "Some of our good fresh bread, made from our own wheat, and cheese and vegetables. You've got to keep your strength up." "Take one of our donkeys too," said Samuel. "You'll get along much faster with it. And if you ever come back this way, you can bring her back. And if you don't, well, you can pass her on to someone else who might need her." So Joseph and Mary loaded their belongings onto the donkey, and Mary climbed up on its back, holding her child close to her. And as quickly as they could, they said their goodbyes and their thank yous, and they went on their way just as the sun rose. An hour or so later, Samuel was getting ready to go out into the fields again. There were some stone walls that needed mending. Best to do it before the wheat grew, to protect the young plants from animals. He was lost in thought, pondering that little family, and hoping they'd be all right, when he got to his fields. And then he lifted up his eyes, and he saw something that astonished him. But before he could take in what he'd seen, he heard a sound which drove away all other thought and struck fear into his heart, the sound of galloping horses and clanking weapons. He turned around to see a band of soldiers heading his way. "You, peasant, stop and answer us in the name of King Herod," the leader of the group said as he came up to Samuel. "What is it?" said Samuel, quaking in his boots a little. "King Herod has sent us out to question everyone on the roads leading out of Bethlehem, and you must answer our questions honestly." "Oh, he'll certainly do that," said one of the soldiers. "I come from hereabouts, and I know this man. We call him No Word of a Lie Samuel. He couldn't tell a lie to save his life." "Good," said the leader. "Well, in that case, I ask you, have you seen a man and a woman with a small baby coming along this road?" Samuel looked up at him, and he thought. And then he said, "No word of a lie, yes, I have. It was on the day that I sowed the wheat seeds in this field here." And he pointed to the field behind him. And the soldier turned to his men and said, "Well, there's obviously no point in us going on, lads. We'd best be back to Herod, because they must be long gone by now. Look at that field." And they looked, and they saw what Samuel had seen, the thing that had astonished him so much. That field where he had only the day before sown those tiny seeds was filled with full-grown wheat, ripe and golden and ready for harvest. And without another word to Samuel, the soldiers turned their horses around and galloped back the way they'd come. And Samuel was left shaking his head, wondering what on earth had just happened. He couldn't make any sense of it, but he could see that there was work to do, so he went back to the house and told Hannah what had happened, and they fetched their scythes, and they went out and started to reap their unexpected crop, grateful for the extra harvest, but even more grateful that the little family were safe. They never heard what happened to Mary and Joseph and their baby, but many years later they did hear about a preacher from Nazareth. And hadn't that been Mary and Joseph's hometown? He was called Jesus too, and people said he'd lived out a message of God's love and welcome for all, and that he'd been killed for that message, but some said he'd risen from death. And when Hannah and Samuel heard those stories, they remembered that tiny child, and the light that seemed to chase away the darkness, not just in their room, but in their hearts too. And they wondered, no word of a lie, they just wondered whether their courage and hospitality might have been more important than they thought on that night so long ago. And maybe we should wonder the same, about whether our small acts of courage and hospitality might make more of a difference than we think. Amen.